Never have I been so full of joy after watching a Marvel movie, before suddenly switching gears and realizing Avengers 4 feels even further away than it did before. Ant-Man and the Wasp is directed by Peyton Reed, returning from the first Ant-Man, and this time rather than having to take over from a previous director, Peyton is able to dive right in and make his own film, with his own voice from the ground up. The result? I gotta tell you, this movie is gonna charm your socks off. Ant-Man and the Wasp is everything that Marvel fans need after watching Infinity War. So much love and care has been put into this film, to just make you feel like you've had a fun, light-hearted adventure that'll just keep you smiling. Now don't worry, if you're worried that Marvel have toned things down to make things even more family-friendly, just keep in mind the first Ant-Man, and you'll know the vibe of this second film. In fact, I'd liken this to action comedy in the vein of Back to the Future, where even though there is a lot of light drama and fun action, you still get enjoyable comedic beats that won't offend anyone, which is all that I think an Ant-Man film needs to be. So much so that I went and saw the film again after my first screening ended. Ant-Man is a bizarre comic creation of the 60s, where the first film tried to ground some of the elements from the comics, especially with the quantum realm. But thankfully everything weird about Ant-Man and his world is just embraced fully here, where I think Doctor Strange may have had a hand in convincing Marvel to try and go more psychedelic and out there with their films. It's a perfect move for Ant-Man, and ends up being a damn good sequel to the first movie, expanding everything that we knew from the first time around, while deepening some of our characters even more. While I think the first Ant-Man is a more tightly made and edited film, the pure entertainment value of the sequel just makes it instantly more rewatchable. This time around, Scott Lang has to team up with Hope and Hank Pym to find Janet Van Dyne, who we know from the first Ant-Man was trapped in the quantum realm, and the movie is centered on this rescue mission. We have a new antagonist, Ghost, who can phase through objects, chasing our heroes for their tech. It is a fairly simple, straightforward movie, despite it containing a lot of subplots involving our antagonists and side characters like Luis. The movie is chock full of jokes and humor though, which keeps the shortcomings of the plot from dragging down the film. This movie doesn't really have your typical villain, which unfortunately is a step down from Thanos and Killmonger, as Ghost isn't a straight up bad person, more of a nuisance trying to look out for herself. This can leave Ghost feeling a bit shallow and inconsequential to the movie, as she doesn't have a connection to the heroes. Hannah John Kamen does a wonderful job portraying her, and even manages to get through the usual backstory exposition scene pretty well. Our more typical form of villain comes with Sonny Birch, played by Walton Goggins, who is really treated more as a typical criminal. And because this film is a comedy, the moments involving him are used more for laughs rather than any tangible drama. The characters that get the best treatment are our returning heroes and side characters. The chemistry between Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly as Ant-Man and the Wasp is fantastic, and keeps the whole movie enjoyable. I was worried that the movie might try and sway one way or the other, but this movie has a really strong message about working as a team, and trying to stick together as a family. So thankfully the two lead characters are played out equally, and oh boy is it a joy to watch these two actors together. Evangeline Lilly plays Hope with more grace and stature this time around, reducing the snarky attitude that we got in the first movie. She just wants to find her mum, and learns that she works best when standing side by side with Scott. She plays into the more dramatic side of the movie, having to work closely with her father Hank Pym, and acts more as a straight man to Scott Lang's goofy comedy. Paul Rudd on the other hand is just perfect. He finally owns this character by injecting more of himself into Scott, where Paul Rudd's mannerisms and timing that you'd see in his usual comedies come into play here. There are some genuinely laugh out loud moments with Paul Rudd that I just loved, particularly during Luis's rapid fire story. It helps that Paul Rudd helped write the screenplay again, because the movie just wouldn't work without his brand of humor. We do get to spend more time with Cassie in this movie, who is just adorable here, and we get to see her relationship build with her father, where you really don't want to see anything bad happen between the two. Cassie though is more in this film just for moral support, and is less influential to the overall plot, but she just adds that much needed heart to these Ant-Man films that just makes them special. Michael Douglas gets far more to do this time around as Hank Pym, and gets some pretty funny one-liners as well, keeping in with the banter between Scott and Hope. Some of the comedic beats don't always land, and feel more like Michael Douglas just trying to read the line, rather than trying to fit it in naturally, so it would have been nice to see some more improvisation akin to Thor Ragnarok. But as it is with these tightly scheduled movies, you don't always get the time to improvise. Michael Douglas is still a powerhouse though, and brings it in the more dramatic moments of the movie, which just wouldn't have felt right with a lesser actor. Michael Pena as Luis though is yet again another scene stealer, where every scene he's involved in is guaranteed to get some laughs. Anytime the movie seems like it might be dulling off, Luis comes in just at the right time and lifts everything up again. He gets a bit more to do this time around as well, rather than just be additional comic relief, and does become more involved with the heroes. The newer characters do get the short end of the straw here, and some seem like teasers for later films. Lawrence Fishburne as Bill Foster seems to be having a ton of fun in the role, acting as Hank Pym's old associate, and we do get to see the two eat up screen time together. And there are some interesting developments done with Bill Foster in the movie, while Michelle Pfeiffer really ends up being in the movie just for a little bit as Jeanette. I remember how excited everyone was that Catwoman was going to be joining a Marvel film, so I imagine some people are going to be a bit disappointed with how little of her that we get in the actual movie. Randall Park is a very small comic role in the film, but it's kind of just enough and uses his talent balanced perfectly. I still love him from the interview and Fresh Off the Boat, and he's exactly the way that you expect him to be, which for me is fine. It's all he needed to be. As I mentioned earlier, Ant-Man and the Wasp really embraces the weirdness of the universe, and dives deeper into the quantic realm, showing us what else exists in this pocket dimension. It's extremely eye-catching and gorgeous, with an explosion of psychedelic visuals that I thought were beautiful, and far better designed than the visuals in the first Ant-Man. Christoph Beck returns to do the score for this film, and continues the sort of poppy, fun rom-com-esque musical notes that we got in the first Ant-Man, although the action scenes have a bit more added flair and energy added to them this time around. Peyton Reed also uses some pop songs in a few occasions that are just perfect mood setters for the film, and I couldn't imagine any other tracks being added. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a movie that wants you to just have a good time. You can bring your family or your friends, and they can all easily digest the movie. Yes, there is nothing groundbreaking in this film, despite some really fun and inventive ways to utilize shrinking and enlarging tech for action and comedy scenes. It is best to have some knowledge of Captain America Civil War before seeing this film, as this movie does follow the events of that previous film. And while you're at it, it is probably worth revisiting that first Ant-Man, as this one assumes you know how the tech works from having seen the first film, as this time we're just diving into our heroes just using their powers. There are no origin stories here. Oh, and absolutely stay for the post-credit scenes, especially if you've seen Infinity War. You will be kicking yourself if you don't. And oh, if you're someone who's been a bit uneasy with Marvel de-aging actors in previous films, I think you're going to be really impressed here. The tech is used sparingly and sprinkled in different parts of the film, but it is really impressive here, and had me wondering whether it was CG or makeup. This tech is absolutely advancing in a positive way. This movie is purely an enjoyable standalone episode set in the MCU that, yes, will help if you have knowledge of the previous films, but you can ultimately enjoy it if you haven't, and just enjoy a light-hearted romp regardless if you're caught up or not. It is super easy to watch and would be perfect if you just want a film that's just going to put a smile on your face. Ant-Man and the Wasp gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Guys, I hope you like this review. If you want to see more reviews just like this one, stay right here for your Monifix. Bye guys.